We're all imperfect, and on this podcast, I'll be chatting with a variety of interesting people who are willing to make themselves vulnerable by sharing their own struggles and imperfections.
With training, there was always like an end goal, as I'm racing for the trials and then I'm racing for the Olympics, and that's my time frame to be ready. Whereas this is I'm training literally for life. I'm getting myself ready for life.
I'm Hugh Van Kylenberg from the Resilience Project.
And I'm Ryan Shelton from my mum.
And I'm Josh from Hugh's mum.
And this is The Imperfects. Can I suggest a last-minute title change for this episode?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Imperfects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really hoping for a bigger reaction.
It is good. It is good.
Let's get that out of the way.
I thought about it.
It is good, but how do you feel about it?
At first I thought, yeah, I guess so. But then when you actually think about Im is in Klim, so it's great.
Him.
Yeah, so it just took you a second.
Yeah, it took me a second.
Imagine when you give it more time. Imagine tonight when you're in bed, about to go to sleep, you're like,
Imagine.
Josh, you on board?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Sorry to press you into thinking my ideas are good.
No, so for everyone listening, please refer to this. It won't be called this officially, but please refer to it as the Imperfects.
It's just a casual side title. Because we're talking, obviously, it'd be a weird episode not to be talking to Michael Klim.
Yeah.
We are talking to Klimmy today, and it's nice I can call him Klimmy.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we can. We've met him.
I think he liked us.
I think so too.
Yeah, we loved him.
What a lovely man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Michael Klim, championship swimmer who is at the moment going through and battling a chronic autoimmune disorder.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is called, Josh?
Yeah, it's CIDP, which stands for chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, which is the, from my very limited understanding, and he talks about this much better than I will, but it's the autoimmune disorder is where the body's immune system attacks the myelin, which is the sheath of the nerves. But in reality, what that means is like chronic pain, loss of sensation in the limbs, in Michael's case, in his legs, and a weakness of limbs, which leads to difficulty moving. It seems like there's been quite a lot of is it atrophy, where like muscle loss in the legs as well. Mm-hmm. So an extremely painful condition, from what I understand. Yeah.
It is confronting. I found it, even like listening back to it. Someone who is such a powerful guy, but obviously is known for being like this champion athlete. It's quite confronting seeing someone not being able to kind of like live that kind of like athletic life that he once did.
Yeah, and the way it affects his identity. Anyway, he talks about that a lot. We should not steal his thunder, but it's
I
brilliant.
could probably go through all the topics now.
I do have a little tidbit for you both.
Oh, did you say Tid-Bit?
Yeah.
I think Tid-Bit.
I think it's a bit of.
Do you always say Tid-Bit?
I thought it was Tid-Bit.
Did you really?
Is it not?
Mr. Van Kylenberg, my eyes are up here. So, no, it's Tid-Bit.
I thought it was Tid-Bit.
Well, I can pretty much 99% guarantee it's not.
What a thing to get wrong.
Yeah.
I was like, that makes sense that it wouldn't be that.
Yeah.
Why is that? You?
It's not, because there's not when you think about it, it's not a bit of a tit.
It sure is not.
It is one thing, it is not.
There'd be the very rare occasion where the Tid-Bit would be about a breast, but that's a very, very rare occasion.
But not even just the breast, but a part of the breast.
Exactly.
Yeah, a bit of the breast.
A bit of. Yeah.
And then it becomes a wonderful pun when you can use it, but it's a very rare.
Yeah. I'm just hoping that this Tid-Bit is not that.
It's not.
Because I can cut you off now.
This is not about part of a breast, this story.
Great. What a tease.
So this little tidbit that I'm about to talk to, it feels wrong. That doesn't feel right, tidbit. Anyway, this little thing I'm going to talk about, there'll be parts throughout this story where you'll think to yourself, hang on, is this an ad? It's not. But you might feel, there might be points when you think, hang on, I'm confused.
Mate, I've already got the Resilience Project journal. God.
So I drive a Mazda CX-90.
Oh my God. Show me the email chain. I want to search Mazda in your email, and I want to make sure that they haven't said, hey mate, can you mention Mazda a little bit in the...
Make sure you say the full model of the car as well.
Model.
Yeah. You picked that up pretty quickly. I thought it was subtle. But anyway, this is a story about my car before the Mazda, and I won't say what it is.
Okay. So was it necessary for you to mention the Mazda car that you drive now?
Yeah, I think so, because I don't want Mazda to think I'm talking about.
Ah, okay.
'Cause I don't want them to
Okay.
think this happened to their car.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah.
So we were on tour the other day. This is when we came back from Perth.
Yep.
And we arrived home on a Monday afternoon. I got dropped home, and as I turned up at home, I went, oh, my car's not there. That's strange. And for some reason, I don't know why, I didn't think to investigate. I just thought my car's gone. Went inside. I honestly thought, it's weird. I know.
I love that you think of your cars in the same way that you think of your AirPods. It's like, oh, well,
On Vance ate it.
I must have. Yeah. Vance ate it. Oh, that's right. Penny, can you grab another card, bro?
Yeah. We might have to take Vance to the vet again.
He's eaten the non-Mazda.
And we just have, sometimes Penny's parents might drive my car, or sometimes
Yeah.
the nanny might. But it did, as we're having dinner, I was thinking, no, every night the nanny's here and Penny's dad's away. So my car's not there. Well, no, it's more, we'd been away on tour for 4 days. There is so much going on in our family right now. And I felt so bad for being away for 4 days that I just needed to just get in and dad.
Yes.
And dad hard.
As quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And so the next morning I went out and I looked down the road and saw my car, and it was about probably 4 houses down the road. And I went, now that is strange. Why would I park it there? Oh, well. And I went to work. And then a couple of days later, I hadn't had to drive in a couple of days. I was thinking, I'm so confused why my car's there. Who put my car there? So I started sending messages to Nanny, to Penny's parents, to everyone who might drive the car. Has anyone moved my car? And it's like, no, I haven't touched your car.
It's a mystery to be solved.
And I thought, this is so strange. I then couldn't find my car keys anywhere. I couldn't find the keys. I lose my keys a lot, as you guys know. So this is not unusual.
Yeah. Okay.
Couldn't find them anywhere.
Yeah.
I thought, this is just the biggest mystery of all time. And then I thought, hang on a minute. I know what to do. I know how to work out what's happening here. The pink dildo camera will reveal everything.
Yeah, definitely requires more explanation for new
definitely.
listeners.
Sorry. We've got a new staff member here who may not know that reference. Sorry, Bill. I was going, I'm going to leave this job.
Yeah. So, yes.
Yeah, so those of you who were listening last year, someone on a hard rubbish day just deposited a very big pink dildo.
Deposited's not the right word.
Left.
There's something yucky about that.
Left a
Placed.
placed
Deposited's like the only thing worse than that is saying someone inserted the pink dildo into the hard rubbish, and you wouldn't say that either.
No, I wouldn't.
I've never heard you say deposited. Actually,
Someone put a pink dildo in our hard rubbish. We didn't know who it was. Went to the security footage from our house and we found out it was a lovely old man who had anyway.
So the security camera is the pink dildo camera. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I called. Yeah, so I went to the camera, and then I realised it wasn't happening at the daytime, and I was like, "This has happened at night. This has happened late at night."
Oh no!
Let me show you what happened. I just come around
Hang
here.
on, I'll come.
okay. Hugh's just walking around to show me and Josh this what can only be horrifying footage.
So that's my black car there.
Yeah.
And we see two guys come along here, one on a skateboard, one on a bike. The one on the bike stops and has a bit of a look.
Yeah.
Breaks into the car.
He just opens the door.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, that's what happened. I did leave the keys on the car seat.
Yeah. Because where else? I cannot think of a better place to leave them because it's so convenient for you.
Yeah.
Or anyone.
Now, the other thing that I really love, I love Nike Max Flies a lot.
Wow, this is an ad medley.
And I also really like the running company in Clifton Hill because they often give me my Nikes for free. Sometimes I don't though. And the other day,
I also love Apple products, and I love Tony's chocolate. I love that. But Josh, anything you love?
I love Fender Jaguars. Are very good guitars.
Yeah.
Jazzmaster's also nice.
Yeah, sorry, what is that? Oh, this feels like a huge opportunity, but I can't think of anything. I love. What do you love, Josh? Quickly.
I love cars.
Yeah, same. Yeah, any car.
In general, Mazdas are great.
So in my car, I had picked up some shoes from Clifton Hill, and I thought they were free because often they are, and I just left with them. And the guy sent a message. On the odd occasion, I do pay for them. He said, "Oh no, you were going to pay for those." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool."
Your life. Your life. I just wasn't sure if they're the ones sometimes I don't pay for things because of
no,
gestures to face.
but often they want me to trial a pair of shoes and go, we'd love feedback on these spikes. So I had 2 pairs of Max Flyers. And anyway, here's the next bit of footage. As you can see, the guy finishes the car. He rides off his bike with 2 pairs of brand new Max Flyers under his arm. And I thought,
the car?
no, he drove. And I was thinking, hang on a minute. So what happened? So he drove off with my shoes, but then he didn't. Why? How'd the car moved? Go to the next video.
See, that's a good ad for Nike. They left the car. It's like a scene from The Godfather. Leave the car, take the cannolis.
So they come back to the car. This is 10 minutes later they came back to the car. I think they had a team meeting and went, hang on a minute. If the car door opened, the keys must have been in there. So they then come back to the car. He calls his mate over. And as you'll see here, they both get in the car.
Yeah.
And they start the car and they drive off with my car. I was thinking...
Okay, returning to seats.
So I was like, my car's been stolen. I called the police. I can't believe this.
Yeah.
And I went, hang on a minute. It hasn't been stolen.
So
they returned it just down the road.
So they just took it for a joyride?
Well, they just took it and then they left it like 4 doors down. And then they didn't return the keys. They threw the keys away.
Even though there was an incredible park right out the front of your place, they didn't take it?
Yeah.
How inconsiderate.
This is one of the most expensive mistakes I've ever made in my entire life. This is how much this whole ordeal has cost me. So, 2 pairs of Max Flyers, $520 gone. I then realised I've got my house keys, potentially.
Oh.
And I thought, oh, this feels yucky. I'm going to get the house.
New locks,
And I wanted to do it very quickly, so I called someone without getting a quote and got them out straight away.
Oh, great, classic Hugh.
And didn't ask them how much it would cost beforehand.
Yeah.
And the guy changed 3 locks and then said that's $740.
Yeah.
I then had to get the car towed to
your house?
To the...
Because you were not happy with where it was parked.
I had to get it towed back to the manufacturer so they could sort it out for me. Got it towed there. That cost $300. And then they called me and said, hey, we can't get into the car. And I said, I know. That's why I got it towed to you, so you could find get a key thing for me. And they went, we can't do that. We have to order it from Sweden.
Oh.
And I went, what? And they said, so we have to tow it back to your house now, and then we'll order a key to be back in 7 days' time. We have to tow it back again. So I towed it back to my house. Then I towed it back to the car manufacturer. So that's $900 all up. And it's sitting there and they said, we have just, before you come here, we found a crack in the windscreen. It's not roadworthy at the moment. Do you want us to replace that? It's a small crack. And I thought, let's do that. I was about to go on stage to do a talk the other day. And just before I got on stage, I got a message from the car manufacturer. People going, hey, we've just found some other things we need to do to make it roadworthy. Is that okay? Just check this price before if you want. I went, no, just do it. Thinking, I thought it might be the windscreen
wipers.
Well,
it has to be roadworthy. If you have to do it, then who cares what the price is? You just have to pay it, don't you? You've got no choice.
I said go for it. And then when I got off stage, I checked exactly the cost. $5,980.
For that one service or that?
For that one to make it roadworthy.
Oh my God.
What did they have to do?
I don't want to know. I just saw the price and vomited on myself. So leaving my keys in my car the other night cost me $8,140.
Oh my God.
What?
I know. How's that for a Tid-Bit?
That is shocking.
But it's just, I'm an idiot. That's what I would like to say. That's the point of this story.
You're going to take responsibility.
Well, I left my keys on the car seat for 4 nights. For 4 nights.
Yeah, that is silly.
Yeah.
That is silly.
And 2 young men helped themselves to it. I called the police and was like, I want to.
If they'd stolen the car, like to not rub salt into the wound here, but if they'd stolen the car, I'm assuming it would have been just an insurance claim.
Oh, much better result. Oh.
I mean, as we've learned in that story, people do make the mistake of taking things without knowing whether they have to pay for them or not. Maybe they've just made the same mistake you did at the running company.
There's 2 forms of theft in that story.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Interesting parallels.
I will never... Actually, no, I won't say that.
You're going to say I'll never leave the keys in the car?
No, because I did it last night. So.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't find the keys this morning. I was like, where have I put the bloody keys? And then I went, surely not. And then they were sitting on the dash. On the dashboard.
Can you confirm that your keys are not in your car out the front of the studio right now?
Great question. I'd like to check.
I cannot confirm that. I reckon I was in such a rush. I'm pretty sure they're sitting outside.
Oh, that they are in the car.
We absolutely need to check right now.
Oh, God, it makes me sick.
Or should we reveal it after Michael Klim? I mean, that's proper.
That's a tease.
That's a tease.
Let's
Proper
do it,
tease,
do it
isn't
after
it?
Michael
Yeah,
Klim.
that's good content.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good content
Right.
brains. Yes.
That is awesome.
God, all my bosses at radio stations would have been so proud of me. Yeah, exactly. Don't give it to them now. Tell them later.
Anyway, we should talk about Michael Klim because, what an incredible athlete. He broke 21 world records in his career. Not many people can say they've done that.
Yeah.
He was, when you think about Michael Klim, I just think about one of Australia's biggest sporting legends. And to meet him as well as a person, and we did a video shoot with him the other day.
Lifeblood in Brunswick.
Yeah, and I love chatting to him. And it really, for me, got me thinking about something which we'll talk about after the episode. And there's another tease, a double tease. The classic DT. But I found...
Double tease.
Yeah. Radio speak?
Not really. But
but it's something I really, really would like to talk about because we haven't talked about it on this podcast yet. And I think it's an important thing to cover because I feel like as I was listening to him speak, I often do this in your interviews. I think about who this really resonate with, and I want to talk about those people when we come back from this episode.
Right. Well, here's Michael Klim on the Imperfects. Well, we are joined by a legend, Australian sporting legend.
I think Australian legend is...
Australian legend.
Yeah, Australian legend.
No, you're right. And actually, when there was one, I have this very strong memory of when I realised that Klim backwards was milk. And because that's your product, milk. And I was like, oh my God. It was like, because I loved wordplay, I was like, what a thing to be able to lean on for a product. It's like milk, Klim, milk.
People would change their name just to be that, but I didn't have to.
Yeah, I did. I changed it back pretty quickly. The family were happy. Yeah, I was Ryan Klim for a while. Yeah, Michael Klim, it is a true pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
2 Olympic gold medals, 5 Commonwealth gold medals, 6 world championships, had broke 21 world records in your time in the pool.
Trying to get to 23, but didn't make it.
21's pretty good.
I think 21's great, yeah. What a story. I mean, we've got so much to talk about today. You're obviously on a very different path now with your health, and we will get to that, and I'm looking forward to chatting about that. But I just want to stop and talk about your career for a little bit. I mean, when you look back on that, your time as a world champion, how do you feel looking back on that? Is it immense pride? Is it just, that's who I was, but I'm a different person now? Or?
Well, in a sense. I mean, we all know that I think as we grow, we sort of, we evolve and, we acquire knowledge and experience. And I think sometimes our mindset in those, say, my teen years was so simplistic. It was all about just swimming up and down the pool, and it was a lot of things fell by the wayside. I didn't really sort of have much of a life outside of that. So
where did you grow up?
I grew up initially in Melbourne. I mean, we travelled the world a lot. I ended up coming to Australia when I was 11. Prior to that, we lived in India and in Canada, Germany. I was born in Poland, so I was a migrant kid and always kind of stood out at school with long blonde hair. I had an undercut at one stage. That went down well.
Yeah, I had an undercut for a while. Yeah.
So I was going to uni high, which is up in Coburg, University High School, and ended up at Wesley, but moved to Canberra when I was 16. So for me, I had a choice, when I was kind of tapped on the shoulder and the guys were already picking kind of the squad for Sydney, and I had that opportunity to, almost it's all or nothing, and I was fortunate that swimming kind of self-selected a lot of things in my life. It was my comfort blanket. It was sort of my kind of, it made me make decisions much easier. I never had FOMO for missing school camp or, being the cool kid at school. I relied on that swimming identity from a very early age.
Just to go back a bit, why do you mind me asking why you moved around so much as a kid?
I think my dad was a spy. I never worked out why. To be honest, he said he was not. So honestly, he never actually told me what he did. He was working for the Polish consulate initially.
You did just nervously look at the door when you said that.
I normally face the door, so this is a little bit awkward. But Dad was working for the Polish consulate, and we worked in India and as the trade attaché. That's a spy word for something.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, and then he got a job again, spy in Germany. So
an agent.
An agent, trade agent.
Yeah, sure.
Export, import.
Dad.
Yeah, what was he importing? What was he exporting? So we end up just following him as it.
Yeah, okay.
And always, he was after this quest, I guess, of trying to find the best future for this, the family of his that was, had the roots were in the communist regime, and he was trying to, get us out of that as soon as possible. So, ironically, when we arrived in Australia in May, 4 months later, the wall fell down in Berlin. So he got that timing pretty wrong. But we sort of, if he stuck around a little bit longer, we wouldn't have to travel and save himself a ticket. But
or considering he was a spy, maybe you got the timing right.
Exactly. So, but look, I can't, identify myself as an Aussie. Probably. I hope I sound like an Aussie now. But so I can't imagine having grown up anywhere else, and
Are they happy memories going up and down the pool as a kid? Do you look back on those with fondness?
Yeah, definitely. And it gave me a little bit of purpose in terms of all these kind of external changes, friends and languages and schools, and the things that as a kid make you really nervous and give you kind of anxiety about going to, say, to school every day. But funny enough, when I got to Australia, the boys were not so welcoming initially. I don't think their practices would be accepted these days. So I got picked on the Australian Trans-Tasman team as a junior. So we had to race New Zealand, and the boys are like, well, you've only been here for 18 months. We can't let you go and race for Australia. You can't even sing the Aussie anthem. So they would hang me up on the hooks in the change rooms and until I could get the words of the Aussie anthem right. So just really sort of, and I think that maybe...
How old are you?
I was 12, 12, yeah. But that's, just really, tough initiation process in Australia. It's a little bit different in Canada. They didn't do anything. But, I think I was always probably an annoying kid, I was always trying to beat the older guys and chase them up the pool, and I'm not sure if there was a sign of jealousy or envy. So, the initiation process in Australia was different.
Do you, when you're at that age, do you swim a lot because you love swimming, or do you swim a lot because you realise somehow that you're really good at it?
Probably both, both. I think it's like I've just felt comfortable in those surroundings. I could always relate to others that were going through, through the same, getting up at 4:30 in the morning, going to school with 3 bags, one with food and one with school stuff, one with swimming stuff, and falling asleep in double English in the afternoon, and then
double English. I haven't heard that in a while.
Then getting on a tram and going back to the State Swim Centre and swimming in the afternoon again, and that was just our life.
Did you? I know you've been writing your book, which is coming out in August. Which is very exciting. Congratulations.
Thanks, mate.
So I'm sure
have
you've
done the proofread yet?
I'm writing for. I'm reading every second line just to get through it quicker.
You won't miss much.
So I know, when you're writing a book, you're thinking so deeply about like different parts of your life. I've never written one, but I imagine. Like when you were swimming, why were you as a kid? Like, if you put yourself in the shoes of the kids that you're doing clinics with now, like why were you showing up at the pool?
I think it was a sense. There was definitely a sense of being recognized and acknowledged. As I was always the kid that would stand out, but I was very comfortable with standing out for the swimming, but not necessarily for the other things. Like I did have a speech impediment, and I definitely looked different in most of the countries I went to. Definitely in India. So I think it was kind of being recognized for the right reasons. And then I guess I started to ask myself questions how far I can take this from a pretty early age, like say 13, 14. I had some really good success as a junior, so the inquisitive nature started to sort of take over a little bit. So that's kind of what you want in a junior to start asking questions and exploring those avenues. Yeah.
When you were not to harp, I don't want to blow this out of proportion but I'm just fascinated because I know that if someone had hung me up on lockers and like singled me out like that, I reckon it would have made me retreat into myself and not really be able to perform or I think I'd get scared. I'm wondering what effect that has on and maybe you won't remember, but does that increase determination? And if so, is it to prove them wrong or to prove yourself right?
Yeah, good question. I have suppressed a lot of things and a lot of things I just got on with. My dad stormed into those changing rooms like
oh, but it was happening.
Yeah, well, someone must have told him, and it wasn't pleasant. So I wasn't bullied after that, but I think it was, I don't know. I think it was probably a bit of both. I think I wanted to prove to myself that I was, better than others, and then prove to them that, I was that way because I was better than them. Maybe, I don't know. It's hard to, even casting my mind back, let's say 30 odd years, it's hard to kind of remember my emotions. But I must have been very cheeky though to deserve that to a degree.
I think it was probably more threatened by your talent, surely.
So, but and that was my mindset for many years early on when I was still chasing something. And after I became world champion at 20 or 19, and it was sort of, I got a lot of success early on. The table kind of turned a little bit, and suddenly I had a lot more to lose at a very early age, and that was a new kind of new sort of battle I had to deal with. Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting you bring that up, because I was going to ask if I imagine that if the way you phrased it before about like you didn't want to stand out for the wrong reasons. So you wanted to make sure that you're standing up for the right reason.
And it's funny, in my mind I was right, but it shouldn't really matter, right, for what you're standing out for. But
True, yeah. But I also wonder if that's, with that mind frame comes a lot of pressure. Yeah. And like that I can't fail at this now. And you didn't, it seems, but because you became world champion and the swimmer you became. But do you remember feeling any kind of pressure of like, I can't fail here?
Not really, because I was so like I said before, almost like obsessed. I did have this kind of routine of getting ready for training and racing and packing my bags and all this sort of stuff. So that thought probably didn't even cross my mind, to be honest. And I, even I was like going through some articles and research for the book, and I saw Duncan Armstrong said he's going to be, the next Aussie superstar, and like all these people kind of throwing, my idols, saying these things about me, and so I kind of probably believed it to a degree, and then my coach was saying, well, anything can happen. You'll probably miss the final at the Olympics. And you would not believe it, but obviously I missed the final at my first Olympics. So
at Sydney,
in Atlanta, the ones before, So, that was the biggest learning curve ever. So, I probably, I was conservative to a degree. Maybe I was trying to protect myself a little bit, but you just never know what's going to happen in sports. So that was my biggest learning curve. Came from that huge disappointment in Atlanta, where walking into the pool, they have a thing called the psych sheets, which is the ranking for every event, and it's like down the wall every event for the meet. And the 200 free was the first event on the first day, and I'm the first swimmer on the list because I was ranked number 1 in the world. And that's definitely got psyched out on that day, and completely dropped the bundle. Couldn't find my coach. There was 100 swimmers in one lane. Everyone wants to have a swim on the opening day of the Olympic Games, and so and I was so used to this structure and routine that I realized how green and fresh I was, to compete against real men that have had Olympic experience and world experience. So that was a tough day, but probably one that we probably wouldn't be sitting here if it didn't happen. We don't know.
So you go on, win everything, and you're the best in the world. So I'm really fast-tracking you.
That's basically the career.
I love it. I love that.
You win everything, you're the best in the world. So we were talking before about the surgeon that you saw and how he saw Glenn McGrath and Shane Warne and just those names, Warne, McGrath, Klim, around that time of, it's just such an era in Australia. It was such a successful generation of sporting heroes, of which you are so very much a part of that group of illustrious sports names in the sort of late 90s, early 2000s. You go on and retire. When you first retire, do you continue to pursue a very healthy lifestyle, as in a very driven, because I know you're very big on your businesses as well?
Yeah. I was definitely very, very driven. I kind of applied all those things. My identity as a swimmer still remained in the sense where wherever I went, people would still go, "Oh, there's Klimmy, there's swimmer guy." One of the things that I didn't realize is that I couldn't keep that intensity up for very long, and I continued to do, a lot of adventure racing, cycling, running, all these sort of just pushing myself to start a CrossFit, and for what reason? I don't know, either to feel that extreme exhaustion or to see if I could still prove to myself that I could do things that most people couldn't. To be honest, it probably wasn't a very thought out plan because I end up having a bunch of operations and literally living with pain for the last 10 years or so with my legs and my back, etc. But and also running a business, living overseas, commuting, literally doing 25 return trips from Bali to Australia every year. I sort of started really burning the candle at both ends, and you can only do that from an entrepreneurial point of view. You can do that for a limited time, and something had to give. So unfortunately, my marriage suffered, my health suffered, a lot of things suffered. Eventually, even the business, I had to step away from that because my health wasn't really up to it as well. So it is, that's when you start prioritizing life and you realize what's actually, what's important to you.
Absolutely no pressure to answer this question. I'm interested in, to be so successful and to be such a high achiever, to have something significant like a marriage. I don't want to use the word fail because I don't think fail is the right word, but to end a marriage. How do you reconcile that when you're someone who is so driven for success and to do everything so well?
Well, it comes back just always to the kids. We look at our kids and they're happy, and we've got great relationships with them, and we're on very amicable sort of terms. So I think that it's tough initially, but then you kind of I think once the dust settles, which takes a little bit of time, it's we've been fortunate that the kids remain priority through that process. So I think that's, you have to put your ego aside and any bickering or whatever, because even though it doesn't happen very often, people forget about that. We've managed to do that successfully. So so that's so unfortunately we've got week on week off kind of arrangement, and kids now they're sort of starting to do their own schedule, which we need to remind them that there is certain time frames that they have to stick to, so they feel comfortable then, which is good.
Yeah, great.
And so in 2020, your whole life entirely shifts. With in fact, before the diagnosis, leading up to the diagnosis, were you starting to feel? Was it over a gradual stage that something didn't quite feel right?
Yeah, I had a ankle that I broke in 2001, and I used to love running because it was like when I came back to Melbourne and for work, I used to stay just off Chapel Street and get up and at 5 o'clock and run to MSAC, do my gym and come back, and our office was just in Cremorne. So so for me, I started feeling my ankle go, my back sort of playing up again, and But yeah, I was just constantly kind of probably just masking the problems rather than really dealing with them. And eventually when I had started getting sensations of neural kind of symptoms of like hot water being poured down your legs and having constantly cold feet and not losing feeling in your feet.
It felt like there was hot water being poured down your
Yeah,
legs.
like a little bit, like it's just really random. And then you get tingling and things like that. So I'd stab my toes a lot more. So your proprioception, it goes a little bit. And I'd walk off and I'd be leaving this kind of little trail of blood because you don't feel that you've actually done it. And so all these little signs started happening, and we started analyzing, doing nerve and muscle biopsies and blood tests, and we knew that it was a neural component, but we didn't know what it was probably until 2020 exactly. But prior to that, we thought it could have been anything from MND to MS to, they all kind of identify pretty similarly. Yeah.
That must be terrifying.
Yeah, and that's probably been the biggest challenge of say my rehab and my mindset with what I'm doing now, is that with training there was always like an end goal, as I'm racing for the trials and then I'm racing for the Olympics, and that's my time frame to be ready. Whereas this is I'm training literally for life, like this. I'm getting myself ready for life. It's like, I mean, there will be an end date, but I don't know, I haven't penciled that in yet. So, so it's that's the hardest thing to, let's say if I had my shoulder done with Greg, he'd give me around about a few weeks for this, few weeks for that, and you'd have a pretty well planned out schedule. Whereas with this, it's really, there's so many variables, from your lifestyle choices to nutrition to, treatment that you receive to now the development medicine. And so there are so many variables that you have to address. And then the biggest one for me has been just your own mental health.
Yeah.
And in my first 2 years of the diagnosis, I kind of spiraled down with the symptoms. When I lost the ability to walk, I kind of went down with it.
The diagnosis is CIDP, is that right? And I'm not going to attempt to say
what it is. It's chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, which basically means that the sheath around your nerves at the extremities start kind of weathering away a little bit, so the signal is not sent through properly, and affects all your sensation, mobility, strength, fatigue levels, etc. So yeah.
And so you mentioned your mental health just then. In the moment you get the diagnosis and the doctor explains it to you, what's happening to you then?
Initially, I thought, what have I done to deserve this? Because it was, I felt that I did a lot of good things and trying to be a good
Michael
person.
Fucking Klim.
Yeah,
this is bullshit.
Don't you know who I think I am? So it was, is that there the first, I thought that I was being hard done by, and there was a grieving period for, I didn't even know that I was grieving. I was probably putting it aside and just getting on with things, but I was actually grieving because I actually physically had to leave that old identity of a person that could do anything from surfing to running to adventure sports. That was gone. So I think the process of acceptance, that once I embarked on that and addressed it properly, not just half-heartedly, because I was doing that for a while, still doing my rehab and still doing but I was, I certainly wasn't looking after myself to the degree that you have to, so, and then once I was committed, even, mentally, and everything shifted, which was kind of weird, but it did. So.
And I know it's only been 3 years since the diagnosis, and I'm sure it's less, it probably ebbs and flows where it's difficult mentally.
Yeah.
But have you discovered or found or realized different ways to deal with your mental health when it is in decline? Like, whether it's meditation or whatever it might be, but
yeah, interestingly, I've kind of fall back towards movement always. Like I find that if I go to the gym or swim, or I've got an assault bike at home, or just sit on the bike, I think for me movement just gets the blood flowing. You breathe, and it's. I think swimming is always a good one. Just your sensories, gets switched around. So for me, exercise has always been a good one. But I think the problem for me always was that I used to be just always racy and always trying to do more and always saying yes. And always when I find myself, feeling a little bit agitated or down or whatever, I'm taken on too much, or I'm trying to do more than I can actually handle. So most of the time it's been really good to slow down and say no to a lot of things that I know physically either I can't do, or I used to have FOMO about missing out on opportunities, and that was kind of my trump card. That I was a real opportunist in business. I'd take a meeting and explore things every day of the week. So whereas now, not that I let things come to me, I think you need to create action to get a reaction, but I'm much more measured, I think, in life.
When you are going through, as you said, that grieving process before, and you were thinking in a way of how could this happen to me, those kind of thoughts, and then you said you managed to switch into a different mode. Was there something that happened that made you switch?
Yeah, I'd reached probably a real low where, I had my family and my partner and everyone who cared about me kind of intervene and said I became a recluse for being a fairly social person. I started as an introvert, being a kid, had no choice but develop some extrovert kind of qualities and be comfortable in my own skin. And then I started avoiding social situations. I lost all motivation for exercise. I started drinking too much. I started, being lazy. I stayed in bed all day, and things that were so out of my character that, your loved ones kind of feel helpless because they can only help you so much, but ultimately it comes down to you, So, I think when I had that chat with them a few times, because it wasn't on the first discussion, it was down there. Yes.
The discussion with your
with
family.
My family, yeah.
Like kids? Do you mean your kids were?
Yeah, no, probably not with my kids as much because it's, we made a decision not to tell the kids initially until we knew what, or even after the diagnosis, we waited a little bit because the future is, even for me now, as we sit here, it's still a little bit unknown. We don't know if I'll, get worse at some point, or hopefully there's a miraculous treatment that comes out in the next few years. But at this stage, it's still a little bit unknown. But we needed a little bit more stability before they could understand. And my youngest, she's still, when I come down to Australia for treatment, she's like, oh, and I come back, she says, "Is your leg better now?" I'm like, it's a bit better. So I might have to go back a few more times.
Yeah, because I think there's this sort of Hollywood idea that we have in our minds that like someone would be in a moment of despair and they get the chat from their family and then they switch it. I find it really kind of brilliant that you are honest to say that it took a couple of goes, like a couple of interventions, because I think it's a realistic.
Yeah.
The way life works, it doesn't follow a neat script.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't a very pleasant person to be around for a while, and I felt hard done by. I was bitter. I was angry with the card that I was dealt. Probably all the emotions that you go through when that sort of thing happens. And I wanted people to feel just as bad as I was, and I probably took it out on the people that I loved the most for a while, and they just said, well, we can't deal with this sort of thing, But and they all probably not probably. I know they felt helpless to a degree medically because there's not much. We were doing everything medically, so the rest of that, the improvement or even remission had to come from me within.
Do you mind me asking, and I only ask this because I can only imagine people would be listening to this who'd have people in their families or groups who'd be in similar situations where they're like in a really down place. So if you don't feel comfortable going back there in your mind, then don't
That's
worry
all right.
about
We've
it.
already gone there, mate.
Well, I'm just
I didn't even ask if he was comfortable.
You waited.
well, I'm just interested to know how that practically, like that discussion, like how that practically works. Like, is that like an intervention sort of thing? Like, how, for you at least, how did they organize it, and how did they go about it?
I had individual chats with my sister, my partner Michelle, my parents, my counsellors, sometimes in a group. So the messaging was repeated to me on a number of times. So,
And what was the message that consisted?
well, I think, for me, I was sort of falling into a little bit of depression, so I needed to start doing things to help myself with. So I needed to start doing the things that I enjoyed and not avoiding people and getting out there. And I mean, I went to the Foo Fighters concert, and I was lucky enough to sit in the disabled area, and I saw a lot of people much worse than I was, but we all loved the Foo Fighters, and we all made it out. Like this one wearing the Foo Fighters t-shirt merch. Yeah, I was on the cover of Foo Fighters in 2000. They didn't even know that, by the way. But
you
anyway.
were on the cover of what?
Yeah,
Of an album?
Of an album. Yeah, the record company put me on the cover of the Foo Fighters. Yeah, that's my little.
Like which album?
We can digress. There's nothing left to lose.
You're on the cover.
Yeah,
But like one of many people, or is it
no,
just like?
just me. I'll show you.
That's amazing.
Forget Roving Maroon 5.
Have you met them and told?
No, they've been asked about me and they ignored the question. So I think maybe they didn't approve it.
What? I've never seen this album cover before. That is you that's undoubtedly. So you've obviously got the Foo Fighters tattoo on your arm.
Oh no, that was a temporary tattoo. If you buy that album in the US, you used to get a tattoo, and we flew back to Australia, and I was training, and I just stuck it on my shoulder, and one of the photographers that obviously took that photo, the record company saw that image, and then they ended up using it for for their special edition Christmas. I think it might have either been a Father's Day album or whatever.
Oh, right.
I feel
So
like
it's like
Dave Grohl would love to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
I'll need to send them a DM. I don't know how to go about it. I need tickets. How do I?
But yes, so sorry. You were saying
that was my attempt to change the topic. No,
I think that's really.
It's a great attempt.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It is good, but I really love that. Like, you sort of look at the people who you're all like kind of united by loving the Foo Fighters, and we're all just people. But
yeah, I think getting on with life I had to get on with life, and because I stopped working, I wasn't really doing anything. I was, even my appearances were drying out. COVID was happening. I was traveling back and forth.
From Bali.
From Bali, and I was away from my kids, and I was stuck in quarantine and in hotel rooms with travel restrictions and all this stuff. It was, I just exited a business that I had had for 13 years. There was all these things were ending, and like my health was ending, my professional career was ending. Like all these things are just, it was full on. And then, I started, all the medication made me look like the Michelin Man. And I was like, okay, so I've lost my looks. I've lost my mobility. I've lost my business, finances are getting tighter. And it's like, it was just like a perfect storm.
So much. Oh my God.
But so I still give myself permission to feel like shit. It's not like occasionally I just get over having to put my braces on, and I get over like, I can only wear certain pairs of shoes. I used to collect sneakers, and I can't do that anymore. So, so there's this, but then it could be much worse. Nike make a lot of good shoes that I can still wear.
Yes, they do.
Hopefully I'll get some good ones on it.
When you were talking about being at the concert, I might be reading into something that wasn't there, but it seemed like you were getting a bit emotional thinking about being with other people who are experiencing different disabilities. Was that bringing up?
Well, no, it was a realization for me, because actually my partner and I said that we've been together for 4 years, and we went through hell in 4 years. We sort of, when she probably did, to be honest. I went through my own hell. She had to be, her own kind of, her own journey. And it was our first concert since we met. We met at Mississippi and Bali watching Sneaky Sound System.
There's no more Bali night.
As you do. Except I wasn't a tourist. She was visiting, but I just made sure she had a really good time when she was there. But yeah, then within 6 months, COVID happened. I got diagnosed. I went downhill really quick. And so we got caught up in the last kind of 3 years of turmoil. So the first 6 months of going out together, we had great fun and, whining and dining and having a little bit of fun. And suddenly all the things that you do as a couple, we couldn't do. I guess we survived being stuck in a room for 2 weeks without a window. But so I think it was just nice that we could experience the first ever concert together. So and then see other families with partners that had disabilities, and so just it made me realise that you just have to get on, just reinforce what I've been able to to accomplish. And I started Klim Swim up again in Bali and got that moving and giving back to the sport and through the swimming world, and then started a bunch of clinics, and they're kind of taking off. And so this kind of come full circle that I'm now in a position where I have got on with things. I had found my path in a way, and it is this whole wellness and swimming space.
It's very, very, I'm sure I'm not alone in thinking this right now, but it's very, very inspiring to hear just the fact that hearing all that and the fact that you're here and living your life like you clearly are now. I don't know what's more inspiring, is like being a world champion or doing what you're doing now. Like it is.
Yeah.
I think they are very, very. I think they're on par.
Yeah.
Because it's much more to me. It's much more relatable doing what you're doing now.
Absolutely.
Than winning gold.
To a degree, I don't relate to the person that I was when I was 16, because it's easy. Like you got everyone doing things for you. All you have to do is make sure you rock up to the pool at a certain time. You have your massage after training. You eat. Everything's done. Whereas I think life, what we do, like having to manage family and businesses and, relationships around your life is much tougher than being a professional athlete. And I don't care what, maybe there's a bit of pressure and, there's a lot of people that expect you and also rely on you when you're in that position. But I think our day-to-day, lives aren't easy. So I feel, I don't know, there's a sense of accomplishment of being able to get to where I am now. I'm pretty stable, and to be able to fly the flag for lifeblood and generating sort of some great awareness around, blood donation and plasma donation, and starting the Klim Foundation, which will be a community of sufferers and the carers that didn't really exist when I got diagnosed. There is no sort of portal that I could go to and find out some information about my condition, and there's nothing. So it's kind of self-explanatory, and I've had probably just as many people come up to me about the Lifeblood campaign as I had after winning gold. So it's I've touched people in a different way. Yeah.
You were saying before that there was a period where you didn't know what your condition was, and then the realization of finding out that you had CIDP.
Mm-hmm.
How did that affect your thoughts around being a dad? Like having this condition and your role as a father and just...
Look, for me, it was actually really challenging in the sense that the kids always thought that I was... Everyone told them, your dad's this, sporting superstar, and kids didn't really understand, and almost a bit of a superhero. You could lift any kid on my shoulders and... I'd surf big waves and, play basketball with my son. And, I could really do anything. So they were always, and they loved the fact that the kids would say, "Oh, Dad, can you wear that tank top to school?" Because the kids think you're the Rock. So I was like, "All right, I'll pick you up in the tank top today." But I think, to see them sort of me just tripping over, trying to get a glass of water and then landing up on the floor or not being able to get up the stairs. It's hard for them, So by the end, they were so in tune. Like they would be walking into a restaurant, they'd stand next to me so I could balance with them, or they'd push me up the stairs. So the kids you think that they're not aware, but they are. And it was sort of, I think they've accepted me the fact that there is a lot of things. My goal was to be able to walk from the top of the beach to the surf, so I could then once I'm in the water, I'm fine, mate. So, I
wasn't questioning you, Michael.
They looked at me like, "What are you doing?" But I literally couldn't. And then now I can sort of carry my. I've got a paddle board. I can't stand, but I've got a knee board, and then so I can now walk down to the surf, and the kids walk down with me and the dog and stuff, and then they wait for me when I'm done. So we're. These little positive things that I'm showing them, and hopefully through my sort of routine and drive, and just trying to be a positive example, because they probably saw me they knew that I had a bedroom on the first floor and I wouldn't come down that often. They would be fetching me stuff all the time, and I was pretty a grumpy dad and saying no to a lot of things rather than, I was more of we'd go for surf checks, we'd do a lot of things. And unfortunately, through COVID too, where I was spending up to 5 to 6 months in Australia, not being with them, with them also not knowing what the prognosis was, what I had. There's kind of, it was a tricky period, but I think, I think they have a better understanding, and now they've had to accept what's happened as well. Yeah.
It sounds like there was a narrative there for you that you're a very physical dad, like a big physical presence, and that was a big part of your fathering.
Yeah.
Do you think there's been a realization that the thing that they love about you is the person inside rather than the physical?
Yeah, no, it's true, because I think they love the connection, and my kids are fairly affectionate, and they'll come and, we've got enough bedrooms, but they'll freaking end up in one bed. It's like just watching telly. I'm like, everyone's got their own room. What's going on? But I think they, the fact that they enjoy that, overspend on the rooms. But so it's, I think they probably, I wasn't, very reachable in a sense, like I wasn't connecting with them. I don't probably intentionally and unintentionally. I probably didn't want them to be around me because I wasn't happy, and then they probably didn't want to be around me because I'd, be on my phone or whatever, not really, But now, now that we're all pretty chilled, they're a bit more happy, and so things have shifted, which is good.
Great. This may sound like a bit of an abstract question, but do you feel like you? Because it's sort of been talked about in general terms, but it seems that you had, or you must have had, and you've sort of explained you have such a strong identity for the first, I don't know how many years, but how old you were when you were diagnosed, but that huge portion of your life linked to certain attributes, physical attributes, that, as you said, you had to grieve that person. And I'm wondering if now, do you feel like you are comfortable in who you are?
I am now. Today, today I feel, satisfied. I feel calm. Even though I don't know what the future holds, I feel pretty at ease. So, and those physical attributes aside, I feel that the mental attributes that I was able to create and grow as an athlete, I'm now able to apply where I wasn't really applying them 3 years ago properly. So, I mean, the first interaction with anyone after I did the project and announced that I had the condition, everyone's like, "Oh, you'll be fine. You're an Olympian, mate. You're gonna get. If anyone's gonna get through it, you'll get through it." But it's almost the contrast of what like it's almost like jumping off a higher cliff. It's like for me was initially that was the hardest thing because people didn't really understand that it's not that I'm giving away more, but it's more the contrast of my life and previously to not being able to get out of bed was tough to manage.
I think it's incredible that you've gotten to this place so quickly.
Yeah, look, I must say I've been quite diligent in terms of lifestyle, giving up the booze, what I eat, and exercises daily. I exercise, pretty much I move my body on a daily basis. I try to give as much as I can to people through, say swimming or what we're doing here today, and then it seems to be coming back in tenfold at the moment. So I think I've found a pretty good balance, and I wouldn't have been able to obviously get here if it wasn't for my partner who had to see the ride happen, and my family, etc. So, and yeah, just supportive kind of friends and family around me the whole time. So yeah, but I maybe actually once I got a little bit of a sniff of what the upside became, I started probably really,
Leaning
into it. So yeah, once I sort of changed to being actively kind of on this kind of rehab path, it was just all about my mental state, not really about physical. I didn't know what was going to happen with that. But once that mind shifted, and everything would just follow.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
So how could we help? And when I say we, I mean we would love to use our platform here at the podcast to try and drive, as you were saying, blood donations. It takes, how many blood donations is it for you to get one treatment?
For me, it's 32 blood donations for one treatment. So plasma donation. So IVIG, which is my medication that I have every 6 weeks. It takes 32 people for one day, and I have 2 days in a row. So 64 donations, and so the plasma has some amazing antibodies, and there's been close to 100 sort of different medications have been developed, purely because of the now advancement in medicine, but also lifeblood and promoting it and getting Aussies to again, I'll drop the Foo Fighters again. A lady came up to me and said, "Oh, well, I've donated 38 times and I've got 4 kids, and it's the best day of the week. I don't have to go and I sit in the chair. They give me donuts and even a glass of sparkling, and so we've been able to not making it. It's not a daunting experience. Yeah. It's I've been really sort of proud to be associated with that campaign. So there's a lot of good things happening. So if you guys can donate, there's about 80 donation centres around Australia. And there's so many people walking in our society that come up to me and said, I've donated 300 times. And have been doing it without any they don't want any recognition. They just do it because it's part of their routine, and, they feel good, like they can, give back to our community, which is amazing.
A lot of donuts.
A lot of donuts, yeah. But the thing is that unfortunately, it's one of those things that it's not like we can just stock up and have it forever. It's a constant demand. So, yeah.
With donuts and sparkling, I mean, I feel like even Bucks Days and Hens Days could even go through.
Maybe at the start of the night.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's just been so great to chat to you today, Michael.
Thanks, guys.
Would it be possible to one of the things that has really stood out to me in chatting to you is the amount of people in your life that have just really stepped up for you. Is there do you have a huge sense of gratitude for a certain group of people that have just sort of, I mean, I feel like I could be wrong, but I feel like without a few people, you may not be in the position you're in today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would, I mentioned my partner before, Michelle. She's been amazing. Her parents, my parents, obviously, they've seen me at my worst a few times, but never at this kind of, in this sort of state. I mean, the sporting disappointments and, typical kind of life stresses, they don't really, didn't really compare to this, but there was a compounded kind of level of stress that came along in this period. So the swimming community, guys that would put me up when I was coming for treatment, lend me their cars, Matt Abood, who's on the Aussie swim team, I mentioned Ian Thorpe. Everyone's doing amazing things for the cause, and then, and having me associated with it, I'm very grateful.
Well, it is an honour to chat to you today, Michael. Thank you so much.
And thanks to you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank
No
you.
worries.
Cheers. Unreal.
I just having listened back to that again with Klimbo, the Klimster. I think more than even though I said in that interview about like how incredible it is what he's doing
Yeah.
now, more incredible than the swimming achievements that he did.
He'd be saving a lot of lives.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
What an amazing guy. Now there's another thing we need to talk about, obviously. For those, the big T's. One half of the DT.
Yeah.
I did just go and check Hugh's car.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Annoyingly, it's locked.
Oh.
Feel like an adult.
Finally.
Lock up your cars. I'm in town.
Lock up your cars.
Doesn't quite work, but I'm pretty happy with that.
Well, it's a
Pretty disappointing result from the T's, I must
It's very annoying.
Yeah.
I know, I was tempted to lie.
Ideally for content, the car's gone.
Yeah.
That's the best.
Can you imagine how great that would be?
Probably not great for my ambassadorship with Mazda, but
No, you don't have to say Mazda.
yeah, okay. Sorry.
Really sneaking it in there.
Oh, dear.
You can have
Anyway,
a fourth child. We're calling him Mazda.
let's talk about Michael Klim because
Yeah.
it was a wonderful chat, and there was something that I mentioned this at the top, but whenever we're doing these interviews, I often, as I'm listening to the guest tell their story, I'm often thinking, who's this resonating with? Who out there listening is going to be really feeling this episode? And as he spoke about the kind of depression that he felt or the hole that he found himself in when he was really at his worst with this, I was having a conversation with my psychologist a couple of weeks ago, and we started talking, we stumbled across the topic of grief. And she was talking to me about a model of grief called the Kubler-Ross grief cycle. I think it's Kubler-Ross or maybe Kubler-Ross. And I was just thinking, re-listening to Michael just then, I was just thinking that's what was happening to him. And because I thought, for me, grieving, I always associated grief with when you lose a loved one.
Yeah.
But there are so many more things that people grieve in their life. For Michael Klim, the example for him is he was grieving the life that he is no longer able to live.
Yeah.
I think he's also grieving an identity. Like his identity was this athlete, this one of the fittest people in the world and one of the best swimmers in the world. And I think as athletes retire, that happens a little bit. They have to change their identity, but he very much had to with this condition that he finds himself with. So,
but the grief cycle can be applied. What you're saying is it can be applied to not just the traditional idea of losing a loved one. Grief.
Well, people grieve more than just losing a loved one. It can be people grieve their life not turning out the way they wanted it to. They can grieving the relationship that you never get to have, or it can be grieving a child's life not turning out the way you want it to, or your family not turning out the way it wanted to. There are so many different examples of grief, and Michael definitely, I think, from listening to him, experienced that. So the grief cycle, and it does get criticised a little bit. The Kubler, or I think we'll say Kubler-Ross grief cycle, because it's not as linear as maybe it's originally suggested. It doesn't go from one step to the next, then to the next in this perfect fashion. But this grief cycle says that it starts with denial, which is a whole lot of things around confusion around what's just happened, shock, fear, all the things you might feel when you first find out something's happened, or when you start to realise you're in a position that you didn't expect to be in. The next stage is anger, and Michael spoke about that. He said he was quite short and with people, and he was quite snappy, and then bargaining, which is where you try and sort of talk your way around it, or you kind of which comes with feelings of feeling overwhelmed and helplessness. Yeah. And the next one, which Michael definitely spoke about, was depression. And I find that really interesting, that stage depression, because I think some people, not knowing they're grieving, think I'm depressed or I have depression, or not realizing it's actually part of a cycle. And
not connecting it to a thing.
Yeah. But when you do connect it to a thing, when you do connect it to a cycle, there's an inherent understanding that there will be this stage has begun, but there will be another stage that I move into. Yeah. And the stage that Michael very much seems to be in now, from the time we've spent to him, is the final stage of the grief cycle, which is acceptance, where you genuinely accept the circumstances you've been dealt, and you then move on and take action with your life. It's like you put new plans in place, you explore options, all those kind of things.
Do you think with acceptance comes optimism?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you've come from a feeling of feeling depressed.
Yeah.
And then to start to accept it, I think absolutely it would.
Yeah, wow.
But I couldn't help but think about, for anyone out there who's grieving, who's going through grief for whatever it may be, a relationship that you are grieving, or maybe you're in a relationship and you're grieving, it's not turning out the way you wanted it to. The only thing that springs to mind, and we've had Elizabeth Day on the podcast talk about her infertility journey, and she talked about a deep depression that she felt because her life wasn't turning out the way she wanted to. She was grieving the life that she wanted. We had Reese Conker on, who talked about his infertility journey, and him and his partner's infertility journey, and the fact that he felt like he was responsible for his wife not being able to live the life that she wanted. She just wanted to be a mum, and he wanted to be a dad as well. And the depths and the dark places that took him to as well. It was absolutely grief as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Or maybe it is the loss of a loved one. I just think understanding those stages and knowing that they're not linear, you can jump around between them from time to time. But I think particularly knowing if you are feeling that depression, if you're deep in that depression stage, knowing that it is part of the cycle, it's a natural part of the cycle. It's a sign that you are well adjusted, I think, because it's a healthy response to something shocking happening in your life.
I imagine a big one would be it's what you hear parents talk about when their kids move out of home, like that kind of empty nesters thing where it's like grieving your children being in your life.
Yeah, a huge change, like 20 odd years of your family being together, and then all of a sudden it's gone. I think that would be something definitely. I hadn't thought about that, but that could definitely be something people would grieve for sure. I mean, there are so many different examples, but I just wanted to mention it because I really feel like for anyone who is feeling depressed and has just labelled it as that and hasn't possibly thought, well, maybe I'm grieving something. Like, what could you be grieving?
Yeah.
And have you found yourself previous to this depression or feeling of depression, have you been really angry? Have you denied the situation you're in? Have you been trying to bargain your way around it?
Yeah, I can really relate to the bargaining aspect of it, in terms of like when my career was not going in a way that I was expecting it would, and I've done this in relationships as well when relationships end, but I think I'm quite unquote good at bargaining and convincing myself that no, this is actually good.
Oh,
This is good because I actually think I could just live the rest of my life by myself. I think that's actually good. It's good freedom, and and trying to convince yourself that the thing that you haven't chosen is sort of trying to, maybe it's a control thing as well, trying to kind of convince yourself that the thing that the card that was dealt to you that you really didn't want is something that you can work with. Yeah. Which I think kind of almost like restricted me a little bit. Like I was sort of I was content in a lesser life than I could have had.
I do wonder if there's an element of denial in that as well. Like when we had Gina Chick on an episode, which we'll put a link in the show notes, but when she spoke about the loss of her child, she said she felt she grieved and let it all happen, and she would scream. She said, I would scream to the heavens and demand my child back. And when I needed to scream, I'd scream as loud as I could. And I would cry outside the shopping centre with my oranges rolling down the road when I had to. And I feel like she's so insightful, and that grief for her was like she just felt it. I wonder if you sort of saying, that's fine, I don't mind. This is actually quite good for me. I wonder if that's like you're sort of you're denying that, the stages of like you're denying it all.
Yeah. And I imagine like something like losing a loved one particularly, obviously, but I guess really any whatever the cycles come from, like whatever you're grieving, and maybe this is what you're saying, maybe this is why it is a cycle, where it's like once you reach the acceptance part, it doesn't mean that you can't then go through the cycle again.
Don't know. We'll have to ask Dr. M that.
Yeah, I think we need Dr. M to take.
I'm pretty happy to make the call on that.
Okay, good.
As we've been talking, I think I have somewhat worked out in my mind, for myself anyway, that the difference between the sort of denial and bargaining and reframing is that you were saying then that the way you're rationalizing it meant you were restricting your life experience, whereas I imagine that acceptance would broaden your life experience, like your possibility for thriving in life and getting the most out of life, as opposed to a bargaining or denial that means that you're shutting yourself off from life.
Yeah, I think I'm probably still too attached to the need to succeed, and so I think like I don't think I necessarily reached acceptance, but I just like it started going well, so that I wasn't grieving anymore.
Yeah.
And also not that I want to compare like my hoped career trajectory to what like Michael Klim is going through or what other people go through with their grief. All it's all different, but that's just the thing that came to mind. But yeah, don't want to make it sound the same.
Yeah. I think one of the really important things that I've learned through chatting to Anita, my psychologist, was that if you are grieving, there's a lot of work to do to work through that. And one of the best ways to do it is with a therapist, is with a psychologist who can guide you through it's getting professional help for something that has that needs to be addressed within you.
Yeah, it's I wonder if this is one, because you said at the start that there's been a few criticisms of the like cycle idea, and I wonder, just thinking about it myself, when you hear it said sort of flippantly, not that I'm saying you did, but if the way people throw it around, that feels like, oh, maybe these things just happen naturally. You just work through these things and you get to acceptance. That's just the way it works. But I imagine it requires work and real deep exploration with an expert psychologist, therapist to actually get through these stages in the most optimal way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of Homer Simpson. Remember when Homer Simpson goes through the stages of grief in like 5 seconds? He goes through all of them in 5 seconds. That might be, some people are going, it's not like that. But that's what happened to Homer, but no, everyone's journey is very different.
The other thing that popped into my head, Hugh, is that when you talked about just being aware of your depression being linked to grief, I imagine that awareness would be the first step of acceptance.
Yeah, possibly.
Because it would put you in a place of being rational, having a rational reason for why you're feeling that way. I feel would be, for me anyway, would be the first step of being able to accept what's happened and accept the state and accept and move through it.
To me, it feels like it's knowledge. It's like, it's just knowledge that this is what's happening to me. I'm not stuck here forever. I'm here right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess I just wanted to say, for anyone grieving, I'm sure that episode resonated with you, and you probably have got your own very distinct version of grief and what it's been like for you. And you might have heard that and go, no, that's not my experience at all those stages. But I think for a lot of people, they will see various parts of their journey in those stages and will be at different points. And those who have grieved and feel like they've accepted would probably look back on that journey with pride that they made it through. So, which gives hope for everyone else.
Beautifully said. For me, it's also just having this discussion then has made me really want to delve deeper into this and maybe get someone in who is an expert on grief to delve deep and really explain a lot of this stuff, because it's something that I'm going to have to deal with at some point. I don't think I've really had to go through this yet in my life, but it's something that I'm sure everyone goes through at some point, hopefully not too often. And I'd love to, really learn a lot more.
Yeah, when I was chatting to my psychologist about this topic, she said everyone goes through grief. Everyone will grieve at some point, but it's not really talked about. So you'll find yourself in the midst of it not knowing what's happening, and knowing the cycle at least gives you some kind of pathway. It kind of illuminates a pathway of this is where I'm headed.
Yeah.
Not in the most linear fashion, but there's definitely a light to head towards.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Michael Klim was wonderful, and
absolutely,
it was such a joy. And filming with him, we did a wonderful video with him, and it was just so much. Well, the video is wonderful, but the experience is wonderful.
Yeah. And all of us have donated blood, and if you want to donate blood, it's so important. I mean, for Michael Klim to get one of his treatments, he needs 32 donations, and he needs one of those treatments every 6 to 8 weeks. So there is a lot of blood needed. Go to Lifeblood. We'll have links in the show notes. It's free, and there are donuts and pies and drinks, and it's a great experience. It's a great experience. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thanks Hugh. Thanks Josh.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
Michael
you.
Klim Perfect.
Yeah.
We'll chat to you soon, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
I fall in all you do. The clay